Welcome to The Brain Changers, a podcast about learning how to revolutionize the way you think and live by mastering your mind. We're your hosts, mother and daughter duo Rebecca and Yvonne King from Moonbeam Monday. Our goal is to empower you to live the life you choose by teaching you how to retrain your brain. Some people tell us it sounds like mind control, and it is, but not the way you might think. This is about you taking control of your own mind rather than letting your mind control you, so you can choose to live a life free from the expectations of others. No matter what you've experienced in the past, you can create positive change and transformation by learning how to master your mind. We know this because we've done it. Between us, we've survived cancer and stroke and eliminated debilitating anxiety and depression. We've turned our pain into purpose through the power of our mind, and we're now here to support and guide you to do the same. In this podcast, we share valuable insights about how your brain works, why you think, say, and do the things you do, how to begin the process of change, and why it's necessary. Because we know that when you change your mind, you change your life. Thanks for joining us. Let's go. Well, hello and welcome to episode 12 of The Brain Changers, and thank you so much for joining us. Today, we have a very special guest here to talk to us about our money mindset. So let me introduce you straight up to the brain untrainer, Rick Schnabel from Life Beyond Limits. Rick, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much, Rebecca, and thank you for allowing me to come onto the program. We, of course, have a wonderful history together.
We absolutely do. Yeah, thank you so much. I do want to give everybody a little bit of background as to how we met, because you have had a very, and still continue to, but you've had a very important role in my life. Just to give everybody a little bit of background, I think we were first introduced back in about 2019. I can't quite remember. But back in that time, as a lot of our listeners know, I was really struggling quite badly with depression and anxiety. And it was actually my mum that introduced us. Thanks, Mum. And I had a couple of coaching sessions with you because of these issues that I had at the time. And I don't know if you remember, but back then I was pretty skeptical.
Yes, I do.
In all honesty, I was a non-believer by that time because I'd never found any relief from any of the traditional methods of therapy that I'd been trying for years. But I was at such a low point, pretty much the point of no return, that I was ready to try anything. So luckily we were introduced, and a very long story short, what we achieved in those coaching sessions started something that has brought me to where I am today, both personally and professionally. You helped me completely eliminate depression and anxiety. And then I went on to study neuro-linguistic programming and hypnotherapy. And now here I am, one of the brain changers, helping other people overcome their obstacles and live their best life. So you've had a huge role in my life, and I'm really excited to have you on The Brain Changers now, sharing your knowledge all about money mindset.
Thank you. And also, what I love about this is the great thing, I think, about the work that now both of us do, is that, you know, when you learn how to help people to shift their thinking, it's a bit hackneyed, I know, but it's the gift that just keeps giving and giving and giving. I mean, you're now helping many, many people to really empower their thinking and take their lives to the next level. So now you're having this influence on all these other people, which is awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, that's right. It's the ripple effect in motion, isn't it?
Yeah, it is very much so.
So Rick, let's kick off, because I introduced you as the brain untrainer. Can you explain to us what that means and how it relates to transforming one's money mindset?
Yeah, absolutely. The first thing we have to understand is that everything that we are has come from a level of conditioning. And where did that conditioning come from? That came from our parenting. And of course, our social engagement, our schooling system, our education, our media, religion, and the list goes on and on and on. So essentially, everything that we are is essentially an illusion to some degree. what I mean by that is someone else can have a completely different perspective on life and, of course, go on and create a completely different life.
Mm.
And so the first thing that we have to understand is in the context of money, how you got your very first nickels and dimes, coins, dollars, whatever landed in your hand,
Mhm.
how you feel about that determines your relationship with money from
Mm.
the get-go. So what we have to understand is that the amount of money we make is largely due to our relationship with money, and it's all conditioning.
Yes, yeah, yeah, exactly. And that makes it so simple, doesn't it? I'm trying to figure out where this actually comes from. And we talk a lot, in our podcast, in our webinars, all of those types of things about those developmental periods and when we actually take on these beliefs, these values. And many of us have these deeply ingrained beliefs about money, even if we don't realize it. It was probably not until I started working with you in terms of training with NLP that I started to hear those beliefs coming out, not only from myself, but from other people. So I'd love to ask you, what are some of the common limiting beliefs that you encounter in your work with people, and how do they impact a person's financial reality?
There are there are many beliefs that have an impact on our money, and many of them are very much based on our self-esteem. In other words, I really believe that how you how much self-esteem you have almost determines how much money you can make.
Oh.
So, for example, if someone says to you, hey, you're really, really good at presenting ideas, why don't you come and join our organization and head up our sales department? And, that's the opportunity because
Mm-hmm.
someone can see the value that you have as a person. And if your self-esteem isn't to the degree of their vision for you,
Mm-hmm.
then what you'll hear is, no, I'm not really good at that sort of thing. Or, oh, that makes me really, really nervous to do that. Or, I haven't got the skills to do that. Or,
Yeah.
how far is this going to go? And what we start hearing is we hear a person's fear starting to come into the equation. And that's what I mean by self-esteem. It's a little bit like, at the end of the day, you can go fishing and you can choose to catch one fish, 100 fish. You know, at the end of the day, the sea is abundant,
Mm-hmm.
but it's your limitation as to how far you cast your line, what bait you put on there, what size of fish you think you could catch. And I know that's, you might not be into catching fish, but it's just a metaphorical element of understanding that this is what happens every day. The moment you go into your job, let's say you're employed, and the moment you go into your job, you shake a person's hand, and how confidently you shake that person's hand is going to determine how much income you get offered with that job.
Okay.
Equally, the very job you apply for, it might be a $300,000 annual income. It might be a $3 million annual income, but it's all going to come back down to your self-esteem because people who don't have a $3 million self-esteem will not apply for a $3 million job.
Right. I'm glad you said that because I'm sitting here trying to put myself in the shoes of our listeners, and somebody sitting there going, yeah, but Rick, I have never had a job that pays more than $80,000. Like, I don't have the skills and I don't have the uni degree or whatever it is to get a job over $80,000. So how can I just suddenly feel better about myself and go out and get a $300,000 job? So what do you say, what would you say to these people who are sitting here going, this doesn't actually relate to me because I'm not in that realm?
Yeah, absolutely. And there'd be a lot of people saying exactly that right now.
Yeah.
Because what they're looking at, if you think about what actually builds us and our belief, it's one of the legs of a table of belief is essentially evidence.
Mm.
What we do is we look at evidence and we often go back into our past and think to ourselves, have I ever earned that level of income? And if the answer is no, then currently you have no evidence to this possibility. And so if you don't have evidence to that possibility, you'll never apply for it.
Mm.
And if I can give you a sense of this, I had a cap, I had a ceiling on my own ability and my own net worth, my own value. And before I learned neuro-linguistic programming, I actually believed I was like the $80,000 guy.
Okay.
That was it. That was my cap.
Mm-hmm.
I could not hit six figures. I could not earn 100,000. I think the closest I ever got to it was about maybe $88,000. That was it. I applied for jobs that fit around that sort of level. I believe my talent skill was around that particular level. But thankfully, I was in an uncapped financial career when I was learning NLP. And when I used the skills of neuro-linguistic programming, I built my self-esteem using neuro-linguistic programming. What happened as a result, being in an uncapped environment, all of a sudden I looked at what I was earning and I was now over 100,000. So that cap, that limit had disappeared. Now I had new evidence.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, this is fantastic. But I went from there to now earning my annual income in a month.
Yeah. Wow.
And the evidence I now had was a spreadsheet in front of me,
Yeah.
which basically said, oh, you're earning, $80,000 this month. Oh, next month you're scheduled to earn 87,000 or whatever the amount was.
Mm.
So I kept looking at these amounts, and then I looked at the end, and I went, oh my God, I'm earning like large six figures now.
Yeah.
And that was new evidence because I was in an uncapped environment. But for most of us, we negotiate an income, we negotiate a role, a job, and it's limited, and some of us think, my job is I work for an accountancy firm. The maximum you can earn in that job is that. So there's already a level of expectation there.
Mm.
And so you anticipate, you expect, you believe that this is the environment, and so you work with that belief.
Yeah.
But it's to earn more money, and we're just talking about not wealth, we're talking about income.
Yep.
So when you're talking about, your income, you'll have a capacity which says that I can earn that. To give you an example of this, there was a gentleman who came to see me at one particular point, and I said, "What's the brief? What do you really want?" And he said, "I'd really love to double my income."
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "Okay, is that possible?" And he said, "No." And I said, okay, so why are you telling me that you want to double your income? He said, well, you're the brain untrainer. I want you to untrain my brain,
Mm-hmm.
and I want you to lift my capacity.
Mm-hmm.
So as it turned out, he was already a general manager for a Chinese company. And so I said to him, let's now look and build some evidence that isn't there. So I said, if we started to brainstorm right now, what could we do with your current situation that actually could create a doubling of income?
Mm-hmm.
So to cut a very long story short, or a very, number of coaching sessions short, what we discovered is that this Chinese company, he was working in Australia for a Chinese company. This Chinese company, of course, had many divisions.
Mm-hmm.
And he had been kind of like heralded as the king. He was doing really, really well financially for their company as their general manager.
Mm-hmm.
So I said to him, here's an idea. What if you took what you did here in Australia and you jumped on a plane, went over to China, met with the board of directors, and said, here's my proposal. I would like to take what I know about Australia, implement our strategies in the Hong Kong division, and if I can do that, will you increase my income?
Hmm.
To cut a very long story short, they doubled his income.
Wow. Okay.
So, so, so they basically said, here you go. So,
Yeah.
you know, what I haven't told you though is that as we were developing this, the thing that we really had to work on mostly was his belief system.
Yeah.
So he could start to believe that there were ways, there was a methodology, there was an opportunity. And so we had to shift his belief system, and then the strategies made sense to him.
Mm.
And then he backed himself by contacting the company and saying, here's what I'd like to propose. Can I jump on a plane and meet with you
Mm.
guys? And that's exactly what happened. So, it's not rocket science, really. There is structural, procedural things to do in order
Mm.
to meet that brief, but the belief system has to happen first.
Yes, absolutely. And our listeners will be really familiar with that because in episode 10, we introduced them to beliefs and how we form them when they're formed, how they impact our lives, and then how to get started with changing them. And because what I was going to ask you is, from an untraining your brain point of view, how do we begin to untrain that brain from the negative money beliefs? So is there something that you can just very briefly share with our listeners about how you might even start that process?
The I'd love to say that there's a red pill moment, and all you do is take a red pill and
Wouldn't that be
wow,
easy?
yeah, absolutely. And all of a sudden, Morpheus appears and he tells you
Mhm.
you're in an illusion and shows you a whole new reality, and all of a sudden, possibility opens up for you.
Mm.
The truth of the matter is, many, many people have what I call the McDonald's mindset.
Mhm.
They simply go, "Where's my red pill? Give it to me, and everything's going to be great from that moment." That's
Yeah.
not how it works. In order for people to extend their capacity, they actually literally have to work with people like you and me
Mhm.
in order for them to start doing the change work, within their mindset. It's a little bit like, their brain has been dipped in a vat and their whole life is due to that brain, whatever they've experienced, the trauma, the beliefs, the stuff that they were called when they were little in school, the bullying, all that sort of stuff has made them who they are. So it's
Mm.
actually quite a job, as you well know,
Yeah.
to untrain the brain and start to see a whole new reality. So the short answer is the only way forward. There's only one way, and that's working with people like you and I.
Yes, yes. Great answer to that. And that's the thing. I'm a Obviously I'm a huge advocate for coaching because I am a coach, but as some people may not know that you and I still work together because coaches need coaches as well. We
Absolutely.
all need support throughout our life. And even when we work on one area of our life, whether it be professional, personal, relationships, whatever it might be, that will create change and it will have a flow on effect throughout our life. But then it will bring us to the next thing where we go, oh, okay. Well, now that I've sort of moved past that, I see something else coming up. Now we move through these things or we identify these things a lot easier and a lot quicker, but we still need help. We can't do it all on our own. And I guess what I'd love to know once we well, I want to know from your perspective, how does one's money mindset influence their overall success and happiness in life? Because you've just told us a great story about financials in the professional world, but that client, once he achieved his goal of doubling his income, did that just mean that suddenly everything in his life was fantastic?
No, it
Mm.
it doesn't actually, because money at the end of the day is really an amplifier,
Mm.
and that's what it is. Sure, I'm happier now that I'm making more money, I've got to say.
Uh-huh.
But you kind of get to a new threshold. and you start to become very used to that new income.
Mm.
And before you know it, your vision expands even further. And all of a sudden, all these new challenges come up. And like you have, me coaching you, I have a coach coaching me too,
Mm.
because you don't kind of hit this level of money and then all of a sudden, you're in a Disney movie and, everything's wonderful.
Yeah.
You find yourself hitting the next level, the next threshold that you really need to move through, because you end up with a whole new raft of problems. And those problems, take you to that next level. For example, the meeting that I had before, our chat today, is now I've taken on a new venture. I'm now starting a charity
Oh.
with
Wow.
you know with
Congratulations.
thank you, with some new business partners.
Mhm.
And that with it brings a whole new level of new challenges.
Yes, it will.
So now you've got to be thinking deeper, further. You've got to start thinking, what is my vision now with this?
Yeah.
And it requires new thinking. It's again, I've never had a charity before. So I've now got to understand the charity business. Like, how do
Mm.
we really do some good here?
Mhm.
And it opens up a whole new Pandora's box.
Yes, it absolutely will. Having come from that space, it's going to be fantastic, though. I look forward to hearing more about that. So, with that in mind, how important is it for someone to have clarity not only around their financial goals, but
Yeah.
really around their life goals, and how does their mindset play a part in achieving those goals?
Well, I think the biggest thing we have to understand is that the world hasn't gotten easier. It's actually gotten a lot harder, to be clear,
Mm.
because you have infinite choices and you have infinite distractions. And in order for you to gain some sort of level of success, you've got to be very clear.
Mm.
You've got to be very clear about who you are, what you do, the strategies that you follow, which strategies you don't follow. And clarity is what I would liken to consciousness. One thing that we really have to guard and be very, very mindful of is our consciousness.
Mhm.
Advertising's trying to get your consciousness.
Mhm.
Social media is trying to get your consciousness. So many people are trying to get into your mind to tell you that the world is a certain way.
Mm.
Everything from a politician to an advertiser will do that. The thing that we've got to do is we've got to really guard our consciousness. I am very selective about what media I consume. I don't sit there and watch horror movies or blood and gore movies, because I know that gets into my brain. It
Mm.
gets into my dreams.
Mm.
And, it really doesn't help me. And in fact, it hinders me. So I'm very, very careful about what I consume. I'm not a big drinker, because I know what that does to my mind.
Yeah.
I'm very, very careful about, the food that I put in my body, because that goes through the blood-brain barrier.
Mhm.
This, and this brain are my most precious assets. And
Yes.
so I'm very guarded as to what I allow into those brains.
Mhm.
And I have a regime and I have a ritual and I have things now, because what I do for a living is really important, because what I think, what I advise, what I work with my clients to achieve is really, really important.
Mm.
So, if I'm half sozzled or nestling a hangover,
Mm.
you know, I am ineffectual and I'm not helping people and I'm not living my word either.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it is really, really important that I keep clear, that I keep clean, and that I keep myself at the highest level that I can, because it's important, not just for me, but for my vision and the people I serve and the people I work with.
Yeah. Yes, 100%. And that's what, that's so important to me, is to be able to walk that talk, essentially. As you know, I talk about helping people eliminate
Yeah.
anxiety, mostly helping people actually eliminate that condition. And so I'm quite vocal in saying I don't want to help people manage it. I don't help them cope with it, because that it's not something that I want people to feel in their lives or to live with. So it's important to me that I do what I can and what I need to do to make sure that I don't have that anxiety. It's not to say that I never feel anxious, or that I never have a bad day, or that I never, feel a bit blue, but I don't live with that condition anymore. But it's all of those, like you say, those regimes, those rituals, those things that we consume, whether it be eating, drinking, watching, that make a big difference there. And so with that being said, would that be your advice for somebody who wants to start retraining their brain for financial success, or just indeed personal success? Or would you have another piece of advice for our listeners?
Well, I think funny, I was on a podcast just recently, with a financial expert, and the one thing that I kept hearing from him was exactly what I would endorse, which is you've got to be quite systematic. If you want to build your wealth, you've got to be systematic about it.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got to follow regimes, and it can be quite overwhelming. There can be so many steps to it, so many changes, so many things that you've got to embrace. And that's overwhelm, having too many things to think about. But to simplify, you just simply ask yourself, what's the first step?
Yeah.
What's the first thing that you got to do? And someone who wants to play a different game in the money game, what you do is all of a sudden you just simply say, well, I've got an extra $200. At the end of the month, there's an extra $200. I'm going to grab that 200. I'm going to invest it.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's easy. Then it's really simple. It might not be a significant amount. You're not going to make, sheep stations with
Yeah.
$200,
Yeah.
a month, but it's a start.
Yeah.
It's a beginning. It's a little bit like, what you don't do is you don't all of a sudden, go, oh my God, look at my body. I'm really unhealthy. I'm really not strong. I'm not flexible, or whatever it might be. And you don't go into the gym, and put 2,000 pounds, on your weights.
Yeah.
You start small,
Yeah.
and you stretch your body a little.
Mm.
And, even in the coaching space, when someone says, hey, this is what I want to achieve, I want to start my own business. You don't say, okay, let's build a multi-million dollar business. You go, no, let's just start small and start little, and make sure that we have congruent behaviors that, that start moving you towards your goal.
Mm.
And, not everything starts out perfectly. We certainly know that.
Yes. Yeah.
You just get out there and start doing the behaviors, and, things start shifting, and you begin to get those results that you're really looking for. And then you push a little further, you stretch a little further, and you just keep moving yourself to where you need to be.
Yeah. Great advice. It's all about taking action, isn't it? But it doesn't have to be
Yeah.
massive action.
No, it doesn't.
Intentional action, and just taking that first step, even if it's small, that's going to help you achieve whatever your goal to success is. And everybody's goal is going to be different, but just taking that first step, getting started, not waiting, just going for it. I love that. Rick, thank you so much. You've obviously, we could sit here and talk for hours on this topic and many, many more, but we will wrap it up. But what I'd like to just ask, if people want to know more about what you do, or because you offer so much in terms of educating people on their mind and how they can make changes, where can people find you?
Probably the easiest place to find me is through lifebeyondlimits.com.au.
Great.
And there's so many different things, videos, all sorts of resources on there. So that might be a good first step.
Awesome. We'll put that link in the show notes. So if anybody's looking to hear a little bit more from Rick or learn a little bit more about him, please just head to his website. So look, thank you so much for coming on the Brain Changers podcast today, Rick. As I said at the beginning, you've been such an influential part of my life and of Mum's life, of course, and my fellow brain changer. And we're very, very grateful to you. Thanks for your time today. And remember, for our listeners, and Rick will back me up on this one, when you change your mind, you change your life. Bye for now, everyone. Thanks for listening to this episode of The Brain Changers. We hope you've enjoyed the conversation today. Please like and subscribe to stay up to date with all the latest episodes. Our mission is to reach as many people as possible to help them revolutionize the way they think so they can change their brain and create profound transformation. Please help us broaden our reach by sharing this episode with someone you know will benefit. And remember to tag us on socials at Moonbeam Monday and leave a review. And remember, when you change your mind, you change your life. We'll catch you next time for another episode of The Brain Changers.